As we approach Heritage Day, the United Nations Human Rights Commission says it's deeply concerned about the reoccurring violence against foreign nationals, including refugees and asylum seekers in South Africa. Heritage Day is a public holiday in our country, during which people are encouraged to celebrate their culture and the diversity of their beliefs and traditions in the wider context of a nation that belongs to all who live in it. Well, to speak to us about the impact such days have on social cohesion and nation building is social anthropologist, that's Dr Raj Govender, who's done extensive work on cross-cultural studies as a means of social cohesion. He joins us now from our Durban studios. Good afternoon, Doctor, and thank you so much for your time on the SABC News Desk.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to all the viewers.
Doctor, can we just start by you defining for us what heritage and culture actually is, and tell us how do the majority of South Africans really relate to the day, especially seeing that we have a new generation of South Africans who have a very different relationship to the state and to their heritage than their forebears.
Heritage Day and also the broader Heritage Month is when the communities of South Africa, which is very, very diverse, they pause and reflect on the rich cultural diversity that the country has. In other words, it's an opportunity to celebrate the cultural wealth of our nation. The theme this year for Heritage Day is reclaiming, restoring and celebrating our rich living heritage, and more importantly, our indigenous languages. As we know, living heritage plays a very, very pivotal role in promoting cultural diversity, social cohesion, reconciliation, peace and economic development. So if we all come together as a nation and stop and learn about each other's cultures, our costume, our cuisine and our cultural norms and values, then it is an opportune time for South Africa to strive towards a cohesive society.
Doctor, how just on that point, how would you gauge people's affinity with their state and their heritage? And is ours diminishing slightly so? And if so, why? How would you do that? Is it by looking at how much meaning perhaps national symbols, for example, the flag or the national anthem hold for people, or how much those symbols actually resonate with them?
Yes, I think it's very, very important to know for the viewers that South Africa is rich. People have different linguistic, religious and cultural values, etc. However, if we still maintain ourselves and work in silos, then we will not be able to work together as a cohesive society. So it is important for everybody that claim to be South African is to learn about their national symbols, they learn the national anthem, and they need to stand proudly underneath the South African flag. For example, the South African Springbok team is playing rugby in Japan. We all need to come together as a nation and reflect on how important it is for South Africa to showcase our patriotism towards our national sport and our national symbols and heritage and so on. It is foolish to learn our South African national anthem, for example, in another language, because that doesn't unite us as a society. We need to have one national anthem, one national flag, and everybody needs to unite under those circumstances. If we do that, then we are striving towards a South African national identity. Me, for example, I am first and foremost South African, but I have an ancestral link to the Indian subcontinent.
Let's shift focus for a moment, Doctor. We saw a spate of recent urban violence where we saw a great deal of anti-foreigner sentiment come to the fore, which all starts to feel very un-South African. What would you say at this point are the key elements of successful social cohesion or integration, especially in our spaces where people who are obviously clearly struggling, living in struggling socioeconomic circumstances? And can we delve for just a moment into what is the relationship between social cohesion and economic inequality?
Yes. A country will be at peace with itself if everybody have proper jobs, they have decent homes, they have a good health care system in the country, as well as a decent education. But if these inequalities do occur, then social cohesion will simply be compromised. So every attempt must be made by the political leadership and the administrative leadership in the country and all the province to work very, very hard to ensure that all these social economic inequalities are addressed so that people can earn a decent living, they can live a decent life, and if they do that, then the attempts to work towards a socially cohesive society will be much better. So recently, you'll find there's been lots of xenophobic attacks and so on, because xenophobia, for example, is the cause of exclusion of many people from the mainstream of society. We need to stop and embrace our fellow African brothers and sisters so that we all can share the pie of the country. And if we do that, then we're working towards a socially cohesive society. However, if we continue to work towards violent means of addressing problems, then it's not going to address and help us move towards a very, very peaceful country that we are all striving for.
So in that move forward, what kinds of institutional change do we need in order to promote the social cohesion we need and reduced inequality, just in your mind?
Yeah, the inclusiveness of a country's communities and institutions in terms of policy, law, etc., can help towards eradicating any anti-social behaviors. So institutions like schools and higher education institutions like universities can play a pivotal role. For example, the month of September must be dedicated to promoting the importance of learning about each other's cultures, etc. So it will be prudent for provincial and national governments to introduce very, very innovative strategies to help schools to promote the multiculturalism that exists in schools, and then like celebrating cultural days, allowing people to dress with the cultural costume, sharing the cuisine, multicultural events of this nature, as well as street parades, and recognizing the importance of being South African. By doing that, then society will be working very, very, very hard in achieving social cohesion. So institutions play a very, very important role, especially schools.
All right. A few minutes ago, you mentioned a cohesive society. Doctor, what should a cohesive, united society look like? What should it be characterized by? A shared vision for the future, a shared sense of belonging perhaps, because for a large number of South Africans, we were not born into a cohesive, unified society in the first place.
Yes, we come from a very, very painful past where the South African society was divided by race and culture and languages. However, after that great miracle in 1994, where we are now belonging to a democratic dispensation, a socially cohesive society is where everyone that belongs to this country, South Africa, needs to emphasize and impress on their national South African identity. By doing that, then we will be able to embrace each other. We need to have more dialogues. We need to have intercultural and intergenerational dialogues where people can sit around the table and discuss the challenges and find meaningful solutions to work towards the future. Remember, we are experiencing many, many problems where there's a society is declining, where parents and children don't talk to each other anymore. We need to bring them together. We need to bring senior citizens together with the wisdom that can impart to the young people. And the young people need to come across and sit and talk about the challenges they face as young people. And if we all do this in a very, very nice, innovative way, then we can work towards South Africa being a united and a peaceful country and a
Very
socially
quickly,
cohesive
very
paradise.
quickly, Doctor, the National Development Plan, which is a blueprint for our nation, sets 2030 as a deadline for social cohesion and nation building. And it states by then that most South Africans should be more conscious of the things we have in common than our differences. Will we reach a
Yes.
point where apartheid is no longer part of our shared memory, our living memory rather? And to what extent will this aid our social cohesion? And is it all achievable in just over a decade?
Yes, it is a very, very, very difficult situation. Yes, the State of the Nation address, the National Development Plan, and all the addresses of premiers in the various provinces have clearly demonstrated that government is very, very clear that a new agenda needs to be worked on and worked out very, very fast. So we need to work to ensure that the national agenda of working towards a socially cohesive society must work. It may seem impossible, but if everybody put efforts together and if everybody come together and celebrate the rich diversity in South Africa, we can strive towards a socially cohesive society. One of the serious problems is the economic inequalities. If job creation, poverty reduction, etc. are worked to very, very fast, then we can strive towards having South Africa as a very, very socially cohesive unit. Yes, it is difficult, but we can all work together as South Africans.
Social anthropologist and social cohesion expert there, Dr. Raj Govender, joining us from our Durban studios. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us right here on the SABC News Desk.